Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Hassan here. Okay, so this video will be part of a series of videos where I will cover some tools, I would call it, or some tips and tricks, or you can decide what you want to call it, but some ways that can make it maybe, inshallah, a little bit easier for those who are on the path. And when we say the path here, or when I say the path here, I'm talking about the path of getting closer to Allah, or Tassawwuf, or Tazkiyah, whatever you want to call it, but it is the path to get closer to Allah in this life. Okay, pretty much what makes you closer to Allah in this life is what you got. Okay, and you do the best you can, and once that time is run out, when you have no more time here, then whatever is the best you got from it, that's what you're stuck with. So maybe it's important to prioritize, really, which brings me to the first thing I want to talk about, which is the marketplace. Excuse me. What is the marketplace? The marketplace is life. It's a life that is going to distract us, and specifically life, for most people, is life in the city, doing your job, going to work, studying, dealing with family, dealing with friends, and dealing with politics or whatever situations that might come up from day to day. It doesn't mean necessarily like you're going to the market, like a wet market or some open market where you're buying potatoes and carrots and whatever. It's basically just a term that is our life, socializing, living, typical activities, which could be pretty much anything that you normally would do in your life. That's the marketplace. But mostly it's about dealing with people and situations, and which is the thing I want to cover today. Before I start, maybe I should mention a couple of things. Number one, I am not a spiritual guide. Okay, I'm not a sheikh of Tassawwuf, not at all. I have something like 25, 26 years of experience following some shuyukh, and have gotten some experience and some situations, I would call it, that have brought me some understanding, inshallah, of what is happening and what is supposed to happen and what might be good for you and not so good for you. I certainly have studied a lot and read a lot from the masters of the path of Tassawwuf. So that's the first thing I want to mention. Another thing is, these videos are not to be taken as a step-by-step. It's not like you start with number one and then you go to the next one and the next one. This just happens to be the first one, and I just want to talk about the marketplace. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the first step. It's just what comes to my mind that I want to start with. Maybe this is a good place to start. Maybe number 5 video is the next one you might find useful, and number 2 will be after that, and number 10 will be after that, and so on. So it's not in chronological order or anything like that. So, hopefully, I don't know how many videos you will be ending with, but inshallah more than 10 at least, because I can think of many topics that I would like to mention. Okay. So about this marketplace. Oh yeah, one more thing that I should mention quick. That is, if you want to go on the path of Tassawwuf, on getting closer to Allah, you need a spiritual guide. You need a sheikh of Tassawwuf, somebody who has walked the path or is walking the path, who is following somebody who has walked the path, who has reached the destination, who follows somebody who also reached the destination. That means that there is a sanad going all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ and Jibreel alayhi salam and Allah eventually. So if there is no silsila, if you can't say, okay, my teacher learned from this sheikh, who learned from this sheikh, who learned from this sheikh, until you at some point reach back to the Prophet ﷺ, if that is not the case, then I wouldn't recommend following that person. Okay, there are some people who make claims of in getting some ijaza or some permission in a dream and so on. Allah, I'm not going to validate this. That whether it's possible or not possible. I mean, I wouldn't. What you decide to do, that is completely up to you. I'm following the tariqah of Abu Hassan al-Shadili, and our silsila is going back to Jibreel and Allah eventually. If you go all the way back, and we know who is the teacher of who all the way back. So, and each one gave permission to their student, who eventually became the leader of that branch of the tariqah. And there are several branches of the Shadili tariqah that they call it different things, similar, but usually they use Shadili in the name, because just to signify that this is originating from Abu Hassan al-Shadili, rahimahullah. And this, of course, you can follow Naqshbandi, you can follow Chisti, or other tariqas. Is not a problem, and you can still get some use out of these this toolkit that I'm going to cover as best as I can, and with any possible mistake, forgive me for any kind of offense you might feel, or any kind of incorrectness. I do my best, and I think there is a need for it, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. And at least I hope to get something out of this in terms of reflection from my own statements, inshallah. All right. So the marketplace. Excuse me. There is, if you have studied any amount of Tassawwuf, you very quickly will understand that there is a need for discipline, self-discipline specifically, and focus and awareness. These are three things that are really that we are really depending on how well we can improve our self-discipline. And in general, you could say you are constantly battling with the nafs, with your own nafs, and indirectly with the nafs of other people, because of course if you have conquered your nafs, then the nafs of other people won't be bothering you, but until you have conquered your nafs, other people's nafs will interfere with your nafs at some point, and thereby lead to some conflict spiritually, mentally, physically, and so on. so that's a really important thing. So if you should narrow it down to something, it's if I should say the path is seeking to get closer to Allah by struggling with your nafs to basically make your nafs have no power over you or influence over you, and seek towards the fitra. That's another thing that I will probably come back to a lot of times. And some people, they don't really consider that as part of Tassawwuf, but it is. Okay, and I will go into those things as well, because, well, I will talk about that. I can see myself going already into talking about something else. I got to stick with the marketplace now, because that's what I want to talk about. So let's not get out to these other minor topics or side topics. Anyway, so one thing that you will see if you have studied some Tassawwuf and read some of the books by Ghazali and other masters of Tassawwuf, other Suyuk, is that almost every single one of them, if not all of them, had at some point gone to the mountain, so to speak, or gone to a seclusion to be away from the influence of other people, so they could focus on their spiritual struggle and their spiritual work. All right, not to say that there is no spiritual work to be done around people, like in the city and in your environment and in your social circles and so on. Of course there is, and yes, I'm not disregarding that. There are many of the shuyukh that will tell you, don't run away from the marketplace. And I don't say I disagree, because yes, it's necessary, because if you don't have that interaction with other people, then how do you know whether you have control of your nafs in the first place? So obviously, to some extent, there is a need to be in life, in the daily life, in the social life, and so on. And to start the path by doing the if you are like saying, okay, now we are starting today, I'm gonna pack my stuff and go up to the mountains and stay away, that's not a very healthy thing to do, because you don't have the tools. You don't have the tools to go to the mountain. And I'm not talking about a fire starter to make a fire. I'm talking about the spiritual tools to complement, to do the meditation, the dhikr, and all of those things that you will be doing in seclusion. You need to have the tools first. So until you have the tools, and even then you have to have, maybe to some extent, depending on who you're following, the sheikh would give you permission to do this seclusion. And they have some things, in some of the tariqah, they have this thing called the khalwa, where you are, you know, they have different ways of doing the khalwa, but one way that I know of, that at least one of the ways that I know of, is they might have some little room somewhere, which is very, very Spartanic and very simple, where basically the sheikh takes you and tells you, here, enter this room, you sit and you do this and that dhikr, or this weird, or you know, depending, you know, he knows what you need at that time, so he will tell you, do this until I come and let you out. Okay. Of course, there might be, if it takes days, you might need to go to the bathroom, so there might be somebody nearby who will be, for example, checking on you some way, but you would have like a minimum of distraction, and you need to focus on this thing. And this is a little bit like when they go to the mountains, these spiritual masters, to go away. This is a little bit like that. Or a lot like that, you might say. It works a little bit differently, but it's maybe a good thing, and certainly they wouldn't put you. That wouldn't be the first thing you experience when you take vaya with the sheikh. That's not. He's not going to say, "Ah, let's go to the khalwa." You know, he's going to tell you to do certain things. And depending on the tariqa, they have different ways of expressing these things, but they have pretty much the same purpose. All right, to prepare you, to get rid of your baggage. For example, let me just give you some examples so you know what I'm talking about. Pretty much all the tariqas, as far as I know, I'm not aware of any tariqas that doesn't have it, have a weird, which is a set of formulas that you will be reciting. Mostly it's at around the Fajr or Zub time and around Maghrib or Isha time. So at the end of the day, the beginning and end of the day, you'll be reciting certain things. Usually it takes 15-20 minutes twice a day. That has the purpose of connecting you to the tariqah and also to give you some kind of this is like the homework, you could say, of the daily homework of the tariqah. And it needs to be done. You have to do that just like you're doing your 5 prayers, for example. It has to be done. If you miss one, you will be making it up. All right. And as I said, it's a little bit different from one tariqah to another, but it's, there's a, the tool is the same. They might just have a little bit different formulas and so on. So that's, one thing you are doing. And then another tool you would be having is, depending on the sheikh, you would be having some text that you will be studying with the sheikh. In most cases, there might be books that the sheikh might tell you, you can just go and read those books, maybe some translations of Al-Ghazali or whoever is one of the significant shuyukh in that tariqah you might be following. So he will tell you can read these books, and other books he might say you study this, you come to the class for those books. You need to have the explanations. It's not something you can just read for entertainment, because the whole thing is you're not in tariqah to feel good about being, spiritual. It's not a club. It's something that each person, even though you are in a club, so to speak, but you are having your particular, your singular, your personal journey to Allah. And even though you are having your tariqah brothers, and there is a lot of benefits in this social, you might have some meetings weekly or monthly or yearly where you meet and you're doing dhikr together, and maybe the sheikh will be present, and he will give you some lessons and so on, and you might be visiting the sheikh wherever he might be and so on. So there are many of these gatherings and meetings and so on. But eventually you could say you have your own journey. Okay, you can only take your own journey. You cannot take somebody else's journey, just like they cannot take your journey. You have your specific, which is something that a lot of people, they kind of lose, because they're relying on this gathering so much that when they are away from the gatherings, they kind of lose that awareness, you might say. So yes, those things are important, but it's also important to keep yourself busy and yourself focused on that. It's really, which brings me to another thing, and I gotta be careful again. I don't start talking about other topics and forget about my topic that this is about, which is the marketplace. But one thing that is very important is that if this is what you put your mind to and you consider this your top priority, it has to be your top priority. Okay, so that means that if we say, I want to get closer to Allah, you cannot do that unless you say, okay, this is all I live for. All right. If you consider that this is not all you live for, you're going to have a very, very difficult time, and you might spend 20, 30, 40 years taking tiny, tiny steps on this path. Okay, you might take many tiny steps, but they're going to be tiny. So you're going to be spending 25, 30 years, and other people who put the priority correctly in their life, okay, will reach whatever you reach in 25, 30 years, they will reach that in a month or a year. Okay, you know, that's how it is. There has been, we know of stories of shuyukh that they became a shuyukh overnight, pretty much. All right, how amazing that might sound, but yes, there have been people in our history that basically met the sheikh and boom, that was it. You know, that was all they needed. Not that they didn't have to do some work, but they got like somewhere that we can't even imagine that station, and it just happened in an instant. You know, so it's it's all about how much you put into it, in not just in terms of hard work. I'm going to discipline my nafs. I'm going to resist all my lazy and my tendency to watch TV or eat junk food or whatever else that your nafs might like you to do, or engage in pride activities, things that make other people say, oh cool, you are so good, you are so this and that, and oh yeah, that's great, you like to hear that, right? So so it's not just about that hard work, because if it is hard work, then that means that your priority is actually already not in the right place. You get it? I mean, I don't know if that's hard to explain or hard to understand. Excuse me, but the fact is, the harder the work is, the less prioritizing you are in it, the less you really consider it. Okay? Because if you honestly, in your heart and in your mind, if you honestly consider this as it, that's it. This is it. This is everything else is just, well, maybe you have to do your job to make money to survive, or you have responsibilities or whatever, but this is it. Okay? So if you are truly considering this it, like the thing that it's all about, right? Then things can be difficult. Okay? Because if it is difficult, it means it's not it. All right, I don't know if this is too cryptic. All right, doesn't necessarily mean that your understanding of how can I explain this? Like, for example, if you're reading some text of Imam Ghazali on the past, about your relationship with Allah and with the dunya, with the marketplace and so on. There is a lot of stories, there's a lot of explanations, and that, to make it for you to say, okay, I get it. There's a lot of those things. And just because your priority is in the right place, doesn't mean that those things is more easy to understand necessarily. All right? It will certainly help. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, I get it. You read all of these things, or this sheikh will tell you all these stories, and everything is just, oh yeah, sure, I know this. It's easy. I can understand. Everything just makes sense. It will, obviously, if you put the priority right, it will make sense to some degree, but it doesn't mean that you just understand everything automatically. All right? You still have to to go through some of these steps along the way, but how difficult or how much it's going to be a struggle and how much time it takes is really depending on, I don't want to say niyyah, because that's your intention, because you can have good intentions, but your conviction, is not there, or it's not enough, it's not 100%, right? And there are many people who put their niyyah in the right place, and they struggle for, like half a century, but they don't get anywhere, or they don't get, that much closer than they were from the beginning. So it has to be conviction, it has to be a class, right? A class has to be there, it has to be involved with this. So let me get back to the marketplace. So when we are in the marketplace, you have to have the marketplace, you could say like some of those people, they say the dunya is in your hand, it's not in your heart. Meaning that you have some, you have none, never mind, doesn't matter. You have what you have, never mind, it's not important to you. And it doesn't like, oh, I lose this, so now it's terrible, okay, what am I going to do? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You're basically living hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is the one that will take care of you in all situations, and however He puts you in hardship, in ease, it's all the same. Because if Allah decides, then that's what matters. It's not matter, whether or now you are not feeling well physically or mentally, or you are not in a comfortable situation. So you accept it and you love it in excess, in the sense of the hardship you love. You love the hardship, right? Because, well, this just means that Allah is putting His attention on you, right? If nothing happens, if there's no this and that, then, hey, what happened? Why am I not, And which brings me to another thing that maybe I should mention before I finish this video, and that's about one thing that people really don't get, unfortunately, and it's something that it's not that difficult. This is something that if I should give you some little tip, Allah. Then this would be probably the most important tip that I can even give to anybody. And that is, because there's a lot of people, they are like, I pray 5 times a day, on time, I do the extra prayers, nafilah and sunnah, and I do sadaqah, I do so many things, and then I do this dhikr and that dhikr, and then, I'm like, I don't see anything happening. Allah. The fact is, that is what's happening, isn't it? Those are the things that are happening. The fact that you are doing those things, that's it, isn't it? You just expect that there will be a result of it, all right? You pray 5 times a day, you do all of these extra things, you're doing some sunnah, this and that, you're doing some of the sunnahs like miswak and all of whatever, right? All of these things you're doing, all right? And then you're thinking that something is going to happen as a result. But those things are the results, okay? That's it. If you happen to be doing those things for 50 years consistently, you should consider yourself in great barakah, in great fortune, all right? That's it. It's like you have your place, all right? And your place is with Allah. Allah. I mean, you have to understand that. So if Allah makes it possible for you to pray 5 times a day, you should thank Allah. If Allah makes you able to do nafila prayer, sunnah prayer, you should consider yourself is a great barakah. If Allah makes you able to fast Monday and Thursday, you should consider that a great barakah. It's a great gift, okay? And that's what you have to consider, all right? Whether you're on the path or not, even just as a Muslim, that's something great for you, all right? So, we have to take that importance in those things, even like, and this is another thing that is, in my opinion, is connected to this marketplace that we are talking about, that as long as you're in the marketplace, as long as you are, I'm now in the city, I'm in Malang here in Indonesia, and we are running our family business and dealing with our kids and cooking and posting things online like this, and all of these activities, right? And yeah, it can be great fun sometimes. I love to have do things, my training, my martial arts training. So it's nice, it's fun. It's if it was boring, I might not be doing it. Some of the things I might do just because it's important to stay healthy, to physically do something so my body is able to do the ibadah. But the fact is, when I do go and make wudu to pray, right, I should be, and I don't want to put any arrogance in this, so I hope you don't take it as such, but I feel a pleasure. May Allah forgive me for having any form of arrogance in my heart. I feel a pleasure from going out to make wudu, all right? Because my wudu is where I start. This is part of the ibadah, it's part of the prayer in wudu itself. Okay, so you're starting, so you should consider that, alhamdulillah, it's like you should be so happy because you're getting ready to go and meet Allah, to talk to Allah, to be in front of Allah. Not that you are not always in the presence of Allah to some extent, okay? But this is the private time you have with Allah. This is a private time, you and Allah, okay? Yes, there are millions or billions of other people who are also with Allah, but this is your time, okay? And Allah can be with all of us at the same time, maybe so wishes, but it doesn't diminish your barakah and your time. So you should, if you put the right emphasis and the right importance on your ibadah, if you don't feel when you go and make wudu that you should feel excited and like really, I don't know the right word maybe, but you should feel like, oh, okay, this is my time. You should be like when you're starting something new, and like say you bought something online, okay, and I don't want to say this is an important thing, but like if you have something that you're really looking forward to, like it's really something great that you order online, you're waiting for the UPS guy or FedEx or whatever to bring it to you, and you know that it's going to be delivered this morning. You're really like opening the package, and for me it's like if I get a new sword or knife, or I sometimes I just can't wait. It's like wow, because I'm a knife person, a blade person. So the fact is, this should be nothing compared to how you feel when you go and make wudu to do your prayers. All right, you should almost, I would say, not almost, you should feel sad that the prayer is over. When you're sitting, when you're doing taslim, after you're at the end of your salah, and you're doing your dhikr or whatever you're doing, it's like you should be starting to feel sad. All right, because now you have to wait until the next prayer. All right, that's how it should feel. And especially when you're in the dunya, because between the prayer, unless you're really struggling and you're doing all the dhikr, even when you're in your car on the way to work or whatever you happen. You can do dhikr while you're cooking and so on, but it's not the same. Right? Your prayer is like the closest, especially in sujood, as you know, right? You know this already. When you're in sujood, that's the closest we can get. And if we are doing it at a certain time of the night, it's like, that's it. That's like, so, you know, if you're not, if you can, I would say, if you want to know whether you are really putting the priority right, it should be, you should be in the morning, in the last third of the night, you should be there. You should be doing that tahajjud prayer. You should be at night doing that salah in the last third of the night, and basically being the most excited, you know, and the most what do you call it? You know, like, yeah, excited and happy when you're putting in your last rakah, you're putting your head in sujood there. That should be the time where nothing else that you're doing throughout the day or throughout the week, throughout the year, should give you any more pleasure in your heart than that. If you consider yourself having the right priority, that should be it. If that is not the case, if you can honestly say that you felt more happy when you had that package delivered to you, or when you met the one that you love, your girlfriend, your, not girlfriend, if you know what I mean, like halal relationship, of course, your soon-to-be wife, okay, let me put that in the right context there, or your wife is coming home from visiting her parents for a couple of weeks, and you know you can't wait because you love your wife. I hope so, anyway. So you know that excitement. You know, oh, I missed you so much. If you don't miss Allah more between the prayer, then your priority is not right. Okay, I'm sorry to say that. You know, the fact is it's an obligation for you to love Allah more than you love anybody else, and to love the Prophet more than any other person or even things, because some people today, they love things more than people, right? But you should love the Prophet ﷺ more than any other thing in the creation, all right? So, you know, and then you should love Allah more than that, obviously, because Allah is Allah, you know, not to, you know, in any way to put the Prophet as a, you know, some less, but, you know, because he has a really high station, and, you know, I mean, we are not even, you know, good enough, you know, in terms of our love for the Prophet is not even good enough, all right? You know, if you feel it's good enough, then you're already misunderstanding the whole thing. So, as 37 minutes, oh, I was hoping to keep this 15, 20 minutes, okay. So you are in this, you know, you're starting in, you know, your path. You might have been on the path for 10, 15, 20 years or more, but, you know, are you really on the path? Are you really on the path? You went to the sheikh, you took bayah, you're doing your weird with your tasbih maybe, or with your fingers or whatever, every day, twice a day, and you're going to the gatherings, but are you really on the path? You know? Or are you just sitting? You know, because on the path means that you are going somewhere, right? If you're sitting, then you're not going somewhere, right? So, you know, and if you feel the same as you felt 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago, what's going on? All right? So you need to have that. So, yeah, I don't want to go too far into other things, but this is the priority of, you know, in the marketplace, you really have to know your priorities, and that's really the bottom line of this video that I want to make sure that you really understand. And then in the next videos, I will be covering some of those tools that I know of, that I learned about. Some of those I learned from the suyuk, from this sheikh or that sheikh. Some of them I learned from reading some of the books, the old classic texts on Tassawwuf, Ghazali and others. And some of them actually I learned through, for example, as maybe you'll watch my other video that has to do with Qigong. There is actually great benefits in using Qigong in opening the third eye, which is like a high level, of course, but to improve your ibadah, to improve your khushu' in your prayer, that's a very important thing, whether you're on the path or not. Khushu' in your prayer is, and that's one of those conditions, is that you put the priority of being with Allah in the prayer. That's the khushu', first of all. If that awareness is not there, khushu' will not be there either. But that's kind of the beginning, and then the khushu' can be really, really strong after that. And that can improve through some of the means of Qigong meditation and so on, if you do it the right way. Then you have other things, besides the khushu', you have your dhikr, your wird, for example, but other dhikr that, you're saying astaghfirullah, 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 but what is going on in your heart, in your mind, is just your tongue saying it, right? There are certain things that can help you. You need to improve that awareness, and I will get to that. I will talk about those things, how these individual tools can help you in all of these different types or areas of your path, whether it's your prayer, whether it's your dhikr, whether it's your reading of the classical text, whether it's your gatherings. When you go to a gathering, there can be a lot of things that you could know that can actually improve your experience, okay? And unfortunately, it's not always that you might get that instruction from your sheikh, because you have to understand one thing, and maybe this is the last thing I need to say in this video so it doesn't get too long. That is that many of the really good shuyukh, they have like thousands of students, many times or in many different countries at the same time, and not that I would, what do you call it? Make it like, oh, this sheikh, they had limited knowledge, astaghfirullah, not at all. But there might be areas that can help some people that the sheikh might not have, astaghfirullah, I don't want to say don't have knowledge about. They probably know some of those things, but maybe they don't emphasize it because they're not sure. Astaghfirullah. I got to be careful. I don't want to insult anybody or make them seem like they have limitation or anything like that. But there are some tools that can help you. Let me give you one good example. Being healthy, okay, is about eating right, having a healthy diet, but it's also about exercise. Some shuyukh, they will talk about it. Some people will not. Some of the shuyukh will not talk about it. They will not cover that, because they expect that you will seek that knowledge yourself without, they have already a full schedule. They're already busy talking about, the spiritual, exercises and whatnot. So having to talk about what is the right diet and, how to exercise, and there are many ways of exercising. Some of my early shuyukh that I was attending was talking about, doing weightlifting, or exercising with weights as one way that they were doing. Even the sheikh himself was doing a regular exercise, and it helps because it increases the oxygen and so on. So let me not start talking about this. This is another topic. But so as I was saying, there are some of those things that I will be covering in the next videos. I will try and make it one video, one topic. This one is a little bit longer, 45 minutes. Oh my. Okay, so I will stop here, and if you are interested, if you have specific questions, comment, inbox me. This will be uploaded to YouTube, inshallah, and I will link it in my Facebook page, in the Tassawwuf page. So you can comment there, or you can inbox me in any of those places. What you need to, if you have specific questions about what I'm saying, or about what you like me to address later on in these videos. So, I wanted to mention one quick thing here that I actually wanted to say. I'm sitting here in my t-shirts, my Eskrima t-shirts, and not even having a hat on. There's a specific reason why I want to be as plain as possible and as non-pretentious as possible. I could have put on my jalaba and put a nice hat with a little turban on, so I look very spiritual. I am doing the opposite because I don't want people to consider that, hey, I can follow this guy, this is my guide, I want to, no, I'm not a guide. I'm a student of Tassawwuf. I've been for many years, but I'm not anybody that you can consider as your guide. And I'm not even your teacher, all right? I just happen to have a couple of ideas that you might benefit from. So that's why I'm making this looking very plain, all right? I know in some of my other videos I might wear, some spiritual garbs, looking like a sheikh or like a teacher or ustaz or whatever, but I might do those at that time because I wanted to show that respect for that knowledge, and I still want to show respect for that knowledge, but at the same time I want to avoid that people consider this, So, I'm a doctor of Islamic medicine, Chinese medicine, so I'm a sheikh of medicine, but I'm not a sheikh of Tassawwuf, right? So, therefore, and this is about Tassawwuf, it's not about medicine. Although I might be considering talking about medicine as part of these videos. So, before this gets too long, and it's already but long, so I will stop here, and I hope it has some benefits. I ask you to make dua for me to be able to do a better job in the next videos. And hopefully it will benefit me and benefit you. And I ask Allah to bless you in your endeavors and in your seeking closeness to Him, and to keep you healthy, and to, to get the best in this world and the next. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.